Stephen Little Bitch Miller and Katie Miller have become totally obsessed with Greenland out of the blue, posting cryptic social media messages that give a sort of urgency to their interest in Greenland. And political observers are wondering, is this foreign policy or state planning for a very specific type of emergency? Because the last time we saw powerful figures eyeing remote territories this enthusiastic, it was 1945. And what was going on in 1945? Nazi war criminals were frantically Googling countries without extradition treaties, if Google had existed back then. So those fleeing the Nuremberg trials picked Argentina. Warm climate, German beer halls, and a government that believed innocent until proven guilty meant we won't even ask. So the Millers, who were scared out of their Virginia home by some sidewalk chalk, looked at this and thought, but if we need somewhere so cold that international prosecutors would just give up halfway through the flight, maybe we're onto something. Or maybe we need someplace so white and barren that Stephen Little Bitch Miller can just blend right in. So what exactly are Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller planning for? And more importantly, what do they think is coming?
To the issue of the Iraqi civilians, I think that as many of them should survive as possible, because the goal of any military conflict is to kill as few people as possible. But as for Saddam Hussein and his henchmen, I think the ideal solution would be to cut off their fingers. I don't think it's necessary to kill them entirely. We're not a barbaric people. We respect life. Therefore, torture is the way to go, because tortured people can live. Torture is a celebration of life and human dignity. And we need to remember that as we enter these very dark and dangerous times in the next century. And I only hope that many of my peers and people who will be leading this country will appreciate the value and respect that torture shows towards other cultures.
I'm about to get into it, but real quick, I'm Lauren Paritra. Please take a moment to subscribe. I have got to maintain my lead on Katie Miller. So hype this video, which you can only do on mobile, share it with a friend, because at first, most people thought maybe they were just really excited about a place with the word ice in it. Stephen Little Bitch Miller has always been obsessed with ice.
Let's be very clear. ICE officers are saving, with their actions, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of American lives. Border Patrol and ICE are getting fentanyl and drugs out of our communities. They just did an operation recently in Minneapolis that swept up a dozen child sex offenders, child predators, and pedophiles. They are removing foreign terrorist organizations from our country.
Like 4 years. For years, ever since being rejected by every hot Latina in Santa Monica High School. So we figured maybe he just wanted a little bit more ice. But then Katie posted that soon thing right after Venezuela. And we realized this might not actually be about ice, but, or well, at least not the kind of ice that pepper sprays children. The timing has raised some eyebrows. So minutes after the U.S. forces conducted operations in Venezuela, Katie Miller posted an image of Greenland draped in an American flag, leading some to wonder if the couple had confused foreign policy with playing Risk after too much wine. Because Denmark's response has been the most Danish response ever, politely but firmly asking them to cut the shit out. So they said, "We expect full respect for our territorial integrity," said a Danish ambassador, in what translates roughly to like, "Please stop being weird about our island, please." So Greenland itself has never been more direct. Our country is not for sale, and our future is not determined by social media posts. This is a quote from the Prime Minister, who was deploying the kind of boundary setting language that usually is only reserved for dealing with pushy timeshare salespeople. So Stephen Little Bitch Miller also appeared on CNN to clarify matters, which he did by not clarifying literally anything at all.
Important topic. The Premier of Greenland and the Premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish Prime Minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, "I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says it wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War. Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
Right,
States,
but your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation. That's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
When asked repeatedly whether he would rule out military action, Miller responded with, "Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland."
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm just trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out. The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So
One last question, Stephen.
Doesn't make any sense.
One last question.
Which is like basically saying, I'm not going to take your lunch. I'm just saying you probably won't stop me if I try to take your lunch. So he also questioned Denmark's right to Greenland by asking, by what does Denmark assert control? Which is such a bold legal question in theory that presumably would also allow like Canada to start pointing out questions about Alaska. So NATO allies are nervously laughing in the way people do when they're not sure if their friend is joking or serious. So Denmark's prime minister noted that if the U.S. actually attacked Greenland, everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that's been established through the end of the Second World War. Some political observers have also joked darkly about why anyone would suddenly need a remote island with 56,000 people and limited extradition enthusiasm. So historically speaking, when powerful figures who are total assholes develop urgent interests in far-flung locations, it does raise questions about their long-term travel plans. So let's bring it back to World War II. After World War II, the Nuremberg trials prosecuted major Nazi leaders between 1945 and 1946 in Nuremberg, Germany. These tribunals established crucial precedents for international law, charging defendants with crimes against humanity. See where I'm going with this? War crimes and crimes against peace. 12 defendants received death sentences through Hermann Göring, and many of them died by suicide before this execution. 7 received prison terms, and 3 were acquitted. The trials established that following orders wasn't a valid defense for these atrocities. Again, do you see where I'm going with this? However, many Nazi officials never faced justice. Thousands fled via rat lines or escaped routes organized through sympathetic networks, often involving Catholic clergy and fascist sympathizers. And ultimately, Argentina became the primary destination under Juan Perón's government, which actively welcomed Nazi war criminals. Adolf Eichmann, a key architect of the Holocaust, hid there until Israeli agents captured him in 1960. Josef Mengele, the Auschwitz doctor who conducted horrific medical experiments, also fled to Argentina and then Paraguay, and then finally Brazil, where he died in 1979. Klaus Barbie, the Butcher of Lion, worked for the U.S. intelligence before escaping to Bolivia. Franz Sengel of Treblinka reached Brazil via Syria. Other destinations included Paraguay under dictator Alfredo Stroessner, Syria, Egypt, Spain under France. The Odessa network, though its existence is debated, allegedly helped SS officers escape. Some Nazis were recruited by both American and Soviet intelligence during the Cold War, like Werner von Braun, who became central to NASA. Greenland, notably, was not on anyone's escape route list. The climate is pretty inhospitable. There's nowhere to hide among a very sparse population, and the Danish government wasn't exactly sympathetic to fascist fugitives. So, most importantly, it lacks the infrastructure. There's no anonymous urban centers and complicit governments that made South America attractive to war criminals seeking to avoid prosecution, which makes the Millers' sudden enthusiasm for the Arctic island all the more puzzling to diplomatic historians. So South America had the advantage of warm weather, established German-speaking communities, and governments that had asked very few questions. Greenland has a lot of ice, lots of ice, and lots of Danes who are very clear about their territorial boundaries. So the whole situation has European leaders releasing statements that read very politely like, excuse me, what the... They invoke the UN Charter principles of sovereignty while presumably wondering if this is what having an unpredictable roommate feels like. Social media has been having a field day. One user commented on Katie Miller's post, "Is there something seriously wrong with you?" Another wrote, "What is wrong with you? You're causing people there a great deal of distress by threatening them with posts like this." Tennis legend Martina kept it simple. "Oh, do F off, Katie." The Danish embassy has maintained admirable composure, noting that both countries work together to ensure security in the Arctic, and that Denmark has significantly boosted its Arctic security efforts, presumably not anticipating they need to boost them against their own ally. Katie Miller, undeterred by international condemnation, doubled down by posting an audio clip of Trump discussing Greenland, captioned with 3 eyeball emojis.
We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Stephen Little Bitch Miller, widely seen as the architect of almost all of Trump's hardline policies on immigration, has spent recent media appearances defending his wife's post as simply reflecting long-standing administrative policy. What? The president has been very clear about that too. He told CNN, as if clarity somehow makes claiming another country's territory less weird at NATO meetings. So meanwhile, Greenland continues to exist peacefully under Danish sovereignty. Its residents going about their daily lives and occasionally checking social media to see if they're still a country or if they've been absorbed by social media decree. And if this video has expanded your perspective, or you're curious to stay informed on where Katie and Stephen Miller are going to flee to when the time is up, please follow. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm Lauren Paritra, and I am Lauren P across all social channels, and we'll be back with more.